Today we'll be working in my workbook called Esther, and it's on the whole book of Esther. And if we look at the table of contents, we have completed the first 4 chapters. And basically, chapter 1 sets up the problem. King Xerxes has banquets for 6 months and 7 days, and by the end of the 7 days, he is drunk, and then he requests his queen to parade in the banquets he's in, which is mostly for men, to show off her beauty. Now, many Bible scholars believe it wasn't just she was to wear her crown and nothing else. It doesn't say that in the scriptures, but either way, it's not a place where she was supposed to be. And a royal woman is not supposed to be in the banquets of the men. And so she denies, she turns him down as far as coming to the banquet. And no one turns down the king. So the king goes to his advisors to find out what needs to do. So they write a law in the Medes and Persians. Sorry about that. Write a law in the Medes and Persians that she can no longer be queen and that she can no longer be in the presence of the king. So she doesn't get killed, though, but they do that so that all their wives won't then disagree with them. So, and that's fine, and that works, and king is accepted with that. But it's a couple of years, and he doesn't like not having a queen. So they have a beauty pageant, and they sweep up all the young virgins of the 127 provinces that King Xerxes controls, and Esther is swept up in that. She is a Jewish young girl. Her Jewish name is Hadassah. She is being raised by her cousin Mordecai, and she is very beautiful. And she's swept up in this beauty pageant sweep. Now, all the ladies that were swept up in the beauty pageant will be part of the harem. They'll never be able to leave the kingdom again. They are going to have a year of beauty treatments, and at the end of the year, they will then see the king for one night, and then they will either go over to the harem of concubines, or they will become queen. And so when it's Esther's turn, the king likes her so much, he wants her to be queen. So all the other ladies are then pushed over to the harem of the concubines. And at the end of chapter 2, we have a little plot that Mordecai, her cousin, discovers about 2 men who want to assassinate the king. Do not know why they want to assassinate the king, but that plot is discovered by Mordecai, who tells Esther, who tells the king, and giving Mordecai credit, and they foiled the plot to assassinate the king. And it's written in the annals, but nothing is done about it for rewarding Mordecai. But that's good, because something's going to happen about that later. Then in chapter 3, we see the villain of the story, Haman. He is an Agagite, and Agagites are enemies to the Jews. He gets an honor where he's higher than all the other nobles. Mordecai is a noble, and so all the nobles are to bow down to him, but Mordecai will not bow down to his archenemy. Haman gets upset, and once he discovers Mordecai is a Jew, decides to kill all the Jewish race. So he talks to the king and doesn't really tell him the people, but manipulates the king in such a way where the king says, fine, whatever you want to do is fine. So Haman creates an edict that on the 12th of Adar, which is about 11 months away, all the Jews will be exterminated, even their children, everybody. And so, of course, the Jews are upset. The king doesn't even know anything about it because he's inside the palace. So Mordecai then is in sackcloth, and he can't visit Esther because he's in sackcloth. So Esther, once she finds out, Mordecai says, this is the time that you were set up for. This is the time you have the king's ear. You need to save your people. Because realize the king doesn't know Esther's Jewish, and the king doesn't know that Esther's related to Mordecai. So now she decides that she's going to help her people. She has all the Jews pray, fast, and her and her attendants fast. And so for 3 days, and then she's going to decide to help her people. So in chapter 5, we are going to see what she does. Esther requests a banquet with the king. Esther 5, verses 1 through 14. On the third day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. The king was seated on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. What has Esther been doing for the 3 days prior to this day? She has been fasting with her attendants. What does she fear about seeing the king? If he doesn't accept her appearing before him, she can get killed. Why is she going to see the king? To try to stand up for her people. Okay. When he saw Queen Esther standing in the court, he was pleased with her and held out to her the gold scepter that was in his hand. So Esther approached and touched the tip of the scepter. So by him laying his scepter out, then she can proceed in front of him, and all is well. She touched the scepter. It wasn't really necessary, but it kind of is acknowledgement. Thank you for not killing me and allowing me to go see you, type thing. The scepter is a rod or a wand held by a ruling monarch. Did the king hold out his golden scepter to Esther? Yes. When Esther approached, how did she respond to the king's golden scepter? She held up, she touched the tip of the scepter. How long had it been since Esther had seen the king? About 30 days plus 3, 33 days. How long had Esther been married to the king by this time? So the time of King Xerxes' reign was, I think it was the third year that I've got to find my answers now, so I'm just quoting as I remember it. Third year that she was picked as queen. No. Third year is when they had the beauty pageant where they picked up everybody. And here I go. And then the fifth year, I think, or seventh year, when okay, Renee, think. Third year is when he had the banquets. Seventh year is when I think he ends up having the beauty pageant. Let me just see who I am. Let's see. And then, so there's been a couple while. Let's see. There's that. Okay. It's okay. The year King Xerxes' reign that Esther became queen was the 7th year. The year King Xerxes' reign that Haman decides to kill the Jews is the 12th year. So, if you make the difference, 6 years, Esther has been married to the king. Okay, now we got all that straight. Then the king asked, "What is it, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even up to half the kingdom it will be given to you." "If it pleases the king," replied Esther, "let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." "Bring Haman at once," the king said, "so that we may do what Esther asks." What is the king willing to give to Queen Esther? Up to half the kingdom. What is Esther's request? Please come today for a banquet. Who else does she invite to the banquet with the king? Haman. We know Esther has gone to the king because of the decree to kill her people. Rather than just to bring the king her concerns, why do you think she asked him and Haman to a banquet? So Haman is the culprit, and the king is the king. So she's bringing them to a banquet so that they can both resolve it together. So the king and Haman went to the banquet Esther had prepared. As they were drinking wine, the king asked again, "Esther, now what is your petition? It'll be given you. And what is your request? Even half the kingdom will be granted." What did Queen Esther have prepared for the king and Haman? A banquet. Again, what does the king ask the queen? What is your petition? What is your request? Do you think Queen Esther will make problems of her people and accuse Haman at this time? Why or why not? You would think that she would at this time. Don't know. You would think that she would. This is all set up for that. Esther replied, "My petition and my request is this. If the king regards me with favor, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and fulfill my request, let the king and Haman come tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for them. Then I will answer the king's question." What is Esther's petition and request? For both of them to come the next day. Why do you think she did not make the problem of her people known at this time? I don't know. Maybe she chickened out. We don't know. It actually is a godsend, but we don't know why this happened, why she didn't end up presenting it to the king. Haman went out that day happy and in high spirits. But when he saw Mordecai at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. What just happened to make Haman happy and high spirits? That he went to the banquet set by the queen. What changed his mood, seeing Mordecai not bow down to him? Did Haman take action at this time against Mordecai? Not at this time. At this time, we know or can guess the emotions of several key people in our story. Match the emotion to the person. Haman uh, is angry at Mordecai. Mordecai is anxious for his people. Esther is nervously preparing a banquet, and King Xerxes is happy with his queen. Calling together his friends and Zeresh, his wife, Haman boasted to them about his vast wealth, his many sons, and all the ways the king had honored him and how he had elevated him above the other nobles and officials. And that's not all, Haman added. I'm the only person Queen Esther invited to accompany the king to the banquet she gave, and she has invited me along with the king tomorrow. But all this gives me no satisfaction as long as I see that Jew Mordecai sitting at the king's gate. Haman boasts to his friends and his wife about many things. Can you name them? His vast wealth, his many sons, all the ways the king has honored him, how he's elevated him above any other nobles and officials. And Queen Esther invited him to accompany the king to the banquet. When Haman says that Jew Mordecai, does he use the term Jew with admiration? No, he doesn't. Despite everything that Haman has, he's not happy. Why is he not happy? Because the Jew Mordecai is sitting at the king's gate. His wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, have a pole set up reaching to the height of 50 cubits, and ask the king in the morning to have Mordecai impaled on it. Then go with the king to the banquet and enjoy yourself. This suggestion delighted Haman, and he had the pole set up. Haman's wife and friends came up with a solution to his problem. What is it? Have a pole set up to impale Mordecai on it with the approval of the king. How high is the pole? 50 cubits. A cubit was the distance from a person's elbow to the tip of its middle finger, approximately 18 inches. Therefore, this pole would be roughly 75 feet tall. Whose permission did Haman need in order to have this happen? The king's. Was this to happen before or after Queen's banquet the next day? In the morning, the next day. Did this suggestion make Haman happy? Yes, it did. How did Haman prepare for this event? He had the pole set up. The stakes are getting higher, pardon the pun. Do you think Mordecai will be impaled before the banquet? Why or why not? Well, the plot thickens. I don't know how he's going to get out of it, but he is one of the main characters of the story, so I don't know that he will, but you wonder. And so that's the end of this chapter. Let's do the crossword together. Number 2, Esther invited the king and whom to her second banquet? Haman. 5, who did not rise or show fear in Haman's presence? Mordecai. 7, who is Haman's wife? Zeresh. 1 down. Esther invited the king and Haman to what? To a banquet. 3, on the third day? Yeah. Esther put on her royal robes and went to the king. 4, what did Haman have set up to impale Mordecai? Pole. And what is Mordecai's nationality? Jew. So that's the end of this chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll see you later. Bye now.